Pretty soon, you'll be able to charge your phone in your pocket while walking around the house. And meanwhile, your electric car will refuel while just standing in your driveway. Power will run to all your gadgets through the air without any wires whatsoever. I know it sounds a bit sci-fi, but scientists have figured out how to do it. Don't worry, they're not going to zap electricity through the air like lightning. Instead, they'll use something much safer: magnetic fields. Let's say you have a special coil of wire that makes a magnetic field when it gets power. If you bring another coil close to it, that second coil absorbs the energy and turns it into electricity. That means you can power things without plugging them in, like a light bulb that turns on all by itself. And according to scientists at the World Health Organization, these magnetic fields are completely safe. Now, I suspect you've already used an early version of wireless electricity. When you place your electric toothbrush on its charger or the phone on the charging mat, electric energy jumps between them. There's a special coil inside the charger that creates an invisible spinning energy field when it gets electricity from the wall. The toothbrush or phone has another coil inside it that catches this energy and turns it back into electricity to charge the battery. This is called electromagnetic induction, but this method only works for short distances and wouldn't be useful for powering your entire house. Some companies are already working to make this technology perfect and accessible. One company has invented their method to send power through the air called air cord. They use it in real-life products. One cool example is tiny video screens placed next to products in supermarkets with changing images. These screens don't need batteries or power cords. Another gadget that's running on this tech is a smart lock designed by the same company. Normally, smart electronic locks need powerful batteries, but this one stays powered without a battery and gets energy from a wide-charge transmitter in the ceiling. That transmitter is like an invisible power outlet. It works similarly to a TV remote, where you use an infrared beam to control the gadget from a distance. In this case, the transmitter takes electricity and sends it to all gadgets that need power as an infrared beam. The transmitter analyzes each device to see how much power it needs, just like a Wi-Fi router manages the internet for different devices. If no devices need power, the transmitter goes to sleep, but it wakes up now and then to check if anything needs charging. Nikola Tesla, a brilliant inventor and electrical engineer who made significant contributions to the development of electricity, would be really happy to see all this come true. He believed he could build a system that would transmit electricity and communication signals through the Earth's ionosphere all over the world. To prove his idea, he built a special Wardenclyffe Tower in New York. His plan was to use the Earth itself like a giant electrical circuit. In 1899, Tesla traveled to Colorado Springs, known for its big thunderstorms. He built a lab there to test his wireless electricity ideas. The high altitude and frequent lightning storms made it the perfect place for his experiments. Then he returned to New York, and with money from a wealthy investor, he started building the Wardenclyffe Tower. Tesla placed iron rods and copper plates under the tower to help send power through the Earth. There would be a huge metal dome on top of the tower. By 1902, the tower and lab were mostly built, but Tesla ran into funding problems. The Wardenclyffe Tower never worked as Tesla had hoped, and in 1917, it was torn down and sold for scrap. In any case, Tesla's idea only worked for short distances. The farther the electricity had to travel, the weaker it became. Scientists needed a way to send energy over long distances, and they found two viable solutions in the middle of the 20th century: microwaves and lasers. In 1964, engineer William C. Brown flew a tiny helicopter for 10 hours using only microwave power. Then, in 1975, Brown and a NASA scientist, Richard Dickinson, sent 30,000 watts of power over a mile using a research station called Venus. But there was still a problem. Half of the power was lost before it reached its destination. Over the years, technology kept improving. Computers, lasers, solar panels, and transistors became more advanced and opened new horizons for wireless electricity. It could eventually help us switch to cleaner energy from fossil fuels like coal and gas. New Zealand-based company Emrod uses power beaming technology that starts with electricity from the power grid and turns it into microwaves. These microwaves travel through the air from a sending antenna to a receiving antenna, which turns them back into electricity that we can use. But there's a problem. Various kinds of waves work in different ways. Microwaves can travel long distances without losing much power, which makes them great for sending energy to remote islands or factories. But if you try to send microwaves all the way from space, you'd need a receiver the size of a city. Lasers can make the energy beam smaller and more focused, which means the receiver can also be tiny. But lasers can be blocked by things like clouds, fog, or dust. Right now, power beaming won't replace power lines over huge distances, but it could be used for smaller projects like charging flying taxis and delivery drones in the sky, powering robots in cities and factories, and replacing backup generators during emergencies. Countries all over the world are investing in power beaming. Europe is focused on clean energy. The Japanese Space Agency hopes to have a giant solar power station orbiting Earth, collecting sunlight and beaming electricity down to us by the 2030s. This space station could send 1 gigawatt of energy, as much as a big nuclear power plant produces in a year. The space power station is still a work in progress, but the technology is getting better and cheaper. So, in the future, we might have a world where there are no more tangled wires, no more ugly power lines, and even free electricity for everyone. Japanese scientists are now working on another groundbreaking tech, a special machine that can turn sunlight and water into hydrogen fuel. This clean energy source could one day power cars, homes, and even entire cities. The current reactor is as big as a small house. It works by using photocatalytic sheets, which act like tiny solar panels that absorb sunlight and trigger a chemical reaction. This process splits water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen. It allows the hydrogen to be collected and used as fuel. Right now, the process isn't efficient enough to produce hydrogen on a large scale. Most existing methods of making hydrogen still rely on fossil fuels. But the scientists behind this new reactor found a better way. Instead of breaking water apart all at once, which wastes energy, their machine does it in 2 steps. First, it separates oxygen, then it collects hydrogen to make the process smoother and more effective. The team used a special photocatalyst that responds to UV light, and they found that under natural sunlight, the solar energy conversion efficiency was 1.5 times higher than in the lab. In some places with stronger sunlight, the efficiency could be even greater. But still, at its current stage, the reactor only reaches about 1% efficiency, which is far too low for commercial use. Scientists believe that for this technology to become practical, they need to increase efficiency to at least 5%. To make this happen, they need better photocatalysts and larger reactors, and they would also need to find safe ways to handle a tricky byproduct, which is a highly flammable gas created during the process. But if they can boost efficiency, many scientists and companies will start mass-producing this technology, leading to clean, renewable hydrogen energy on a large scale.
Recently, Chinese scientists discovered something interesting on the Moon, an unusual crystal. Moreover, they found out that this crystal contains an element that can literally replace nuclear fuel. Let's find out more. The composition of the Moon has long remained a mystery to us. Half a century has already passed since the Apollo mission. Unfortunately, we haven't traveled to the Moon much since then. So it's not surprising that it's not so easy for us to study it. But recently, we've made a breakthrough in this area. In December 2020, Chinese scientists sent the Chang'e 5 probe to the Moon. The mission was named after the ancient Chinese deity of the Moon, Chang'e. Quite poetic, isn't it? Anyway, After the probe went to the nearest side of the moon, it spent several days digging through the surface and rocks and then returned to Earth. In total, it collected about 4 pounds of various lunar rocks, like basalt, solidified lava, and so on. And yeah, maybe it doesn't sound too impressive, but it's actually a mini breakthrough. After all, we hadn't received any lunar samples since 1976. And these samples are very important for learning the history of our world. We've been struggling for many years to find out, for example, how the moon was born at all. Yes, there were a lot of theories, but we still couldn't find any proper evidence for any of them. But thanks to the latest missions and some computer simulations, scientists finally found out the truth. The moon was born when some random dwarf planet crashed into our Earth many millions of years ago. This dwarf planet was slightly smaller than Mars. The fragments of the Earth went into space, but some of them stayed in our orbit. Then they stuck together and formed the moon. It sounds horrifying, but in reality, the birth of the moon was the best thing to ever happen to our planet. If it weren't for this beautiful satellite, all our oceans would be small puddles. Life wouldn't have appeared on Earth at all. So this is already an amazing discovery. But that's still not all. Studying the collected rocks, scientists from the Beijing Research Institute discovered something unusual: a rare lunar crystal. Looks pretty boring, doesn't it? Just some tiny transparent monocrystal about the thickness of a human hair. We've already found such things on the moon before. These crystals were formed as a result of volcanic activity, just like some garnets on the Earth. And yep, the place where they discovered these crystals also suffered from volcanoes 1.2 billion years ago. That means that this tiny baby is over 1 billion years old. But that's not the most important thing. It's the fact that this crystal is made of a unique material, the one that we've never seen before. Researchers from the International Mineralogical Association have confirmed that such a composition can't be found anywhere on Earth. The crystal was named Chongasite, again after the same moon deity. And this is another achievement. This is the 6th previously unknown mineral that we've found on the moon, and the first one found by China. Now, it has become the 3rd country in the world to make such a lunar discovery. However, this tiny crystal still wasn't the only remarkable thing they found. After studying this gem and about 140,000 other lunar particles, scientists have discovered something else. They found helium-3. Why is it so important? Because this is one of the elements that feed the sun and other stars in our universe. We tend to say stuff like, put out the sun is burning, and so on. And this is one of the reasons why many people actually think that the sun is a huge fireball. But it's not. Its burning is actually a completely different process, which is called nuclear fusion. The process itself is quite simple. During this reaction, hydrogen in the star turns into helium. But this simple process is actually one of the most violent and insane reactions in the universe. There's a real boiling broth of particles inside the sun. The hydrogen nuclei that jump and rush there are constantly repelling each other since all of them are positively charged. And so they could continue to boil and chill around without bothering anyone if it weren't for the stars. The stars turned out to be cheaters. They have such strong gravity that they basically grab billions of these little atoms and squeeze them together. Combining with each other, these atoms create new heavy elements, like the mentioned helium. And when this happens, they throw a lot of energy into space. And that's how the sun burns. At the same time, it spreads so much energy that we can't even imagine. Okay, so what is helium-3? Well, this is an element to which even the sun can say, "Whoa dude, you should calm down." The fusion of helium-3 atoms releases even more energy than in typical nuclear fusion. And most importantly, it doesn't pollute the atmosphere with harmful things like radiation. We have very, very little helium-3 on Earth. Its prevalence in our atmosphere is about 1 in a million. And besides, it's constantly trying to escape from us back into space. Probably feels some bad vibes from us. However, scientists have recently found out that there's a place that contains a lot of this element. Yep, you guessed it, it's the moon. We think that there's more helium-3 on the moon than on Earth because of the solar winds. The sun has been hammering on the moon with its helium-3 for billions of years, so now it's all over the place. It's still not too much if you compare it, for example, with Jupiter or Saturn. But don't forget how much energy it can release. For your information, with only 25 tons of helium-3, it's possible to provide America with energy for an entire year. Now, there are 35,000 tons of it here on Earth, and more than 1 million tons on the moon. Only these sources could feed the entire US for thousands of years. So basically, in the future, helium-3 may become a new source of fuel. And it's better than nuclear fuel in basically everything. Helium-3 won't leave any harmful waste and radiation. It's more powerful and not that dangerous. In other words, this environmentally friendly and efficient energy could be a revolution for our planet. Sounds cool, huh? So, what are we waiting for? Grab the shovels, you might say. But there's a little problem here. Unfortunately, we haven't yet come up with anything as wildly strong and hot as the stars. To use helium-3, we need crazy temperatures and pressure. We need a thermonuclear reactor, and we have no idea how to build it, yet. And even if we could heat it up to such temperatures and get the needed pressure, we still don't really know how to handle helium-3 correctly. Therefore, even if we have an infinite amount of helium-3, we still won't be able to use it. But still, there's a great power behind helium-3, so it's not surprising that different countries have already started a race for nuclear resources. Now that Chang'e 5 has discovered a new helium-3 deposit on the nearest side of the moon, this race can become downright global. For example, China already plans a new lunar mission in 2024, Chang'e 6. During this mission, they want to collect the first samples from the far side of the moon. As you can see, finding this lunar crystal was very important for us. These crystals can help us find new ways to create helium-3. And if we manage to do that, humankind will enter a new era. But to do this, we still have to solve a number of problems. How to deliver a bunch of these lunar crystals to Earth, how to make them produce energy, and so on. Let's hope that in the future these issues will be resolved and we'll find a way to produce clean, safe, unlimited energy.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.